Serena Williams didn't just speak, she detonated a moment that shook the entire tennis world. What began as a routine press conference turned into something far more explosive. The kind of moment that doesn't just trend for a day, but rewrites narratives. Because this wasn't just about one player, one match, or one controversial call. This was about power, legacy, and a system being questioned at its core. And at the center of it all was a rising name, Alex Eala. She wasn't supposed to be the story. Not yet. Not in a sport where hierarchy is everything and recognition is earned slowly, often painfully. But Eala didn't follow the script, she challenged it. Before everything erupted, there was silence. The kind of silence that builds pressure beneath the surface. For over 2 decades, Serena Williams had defined dominance in women's tennis. Her presence wasn't just about winning, it was about transforming the sport itself. Every match she played drew global attention. Every victory added another layer to a legacy that few could even dream of matching. She wasn't just part of the system, she was the system's most powerful force. But by 2024, Serena had stepped away from active competition. Still revered, still untouchable in legacy. Yet the game had begun shifting. A new generation was rising faster, louder, hungrier. Players who didn't want to live in anyone's shadow, not even Serena's. That's where Alex Eala entered the picture. Young, fearless, relentless. She arrived at the Miami Open not as a favorite, but as a disruptor. She wasn't chasing polite recognition, she was demanding it. Every match she played carried urgency, like she had something to prove not just to her opponents, but to the entire establishment watching from above. And the establishment, particularly the Women's Tennis Association, was already under pressure. Questions were growing louder. About fairness. About rankings. About whether young players were truly being given equal opportunities, or quietly held back to protect established stars. The tension was there. Unspoken, but undeniable. And then came the moment that changed everything. A single line call. In tennis, these moments can define careers. A ball lands near the line, was it in or out? The difference is inches, but the consequences can echo forever. During a crucial match, Eala found herself at the center of one of those moments. The call went against her. She challenged immediately. The system reviewed it. The verdict? The ball was in. The decision was overturned. On the surface, justice was served. But something deeper had already been triggered. Because after that moment, everything shifted. Eala surged forward. She took control of the match. She won. And in her post-match interview, she didn't celebrate in the way people expected. She didn't smile politely. She didn't stick to safe answers. Instead, she spoke the words that would ignite a fire. The system isn't always fair. And when it fails, I'm not staying silent. That wasn't just frustration, that was an accusation. She wasn't talking about one bad call. She was questioning the integrity of the entire structure, suggesting that favoritism existed, that rising players were being held back, that the system wasn't as neutral as it claimed to be. The response from the WTA was immediate and predictable. A formal statement, carefully worded, defending fairness, emphasizing transparency. But it rang hollow, because Eala didn't back down. She doubled down. In interviews, she expanded on her claims. She spoke about rankings, about sponsorship disparities, about how opportunities seemed to flow toward already established names, while emerging players had to fight twice as hard just to be noticed. And then something unexpected happened. Serena Williams entered the conversation. Not with a long speech. Not with a press tour. Just a simple message. But it was enough. Because when Serena speaks, people listen. The tennis world paused. Held its breath. Because this was no longer just a young player speaking out. This was the most powerful voice in the sport stepping in. And when Serena finally faced the cameras, she didn't hold back. She didn't hedge her words. She didn't soften the message. She made it clear. A system cannot claim fairness while protecting certain players and marginalizing others. Her words carried weight not just because of who she was, but because of everything she had experienced. She had fought battles against bias throughout her career. She knew what institutional resistance looked like. And now, she was calling it out again. Publicly. Directly. She praised Eala's courage. She highlighted inconsistencies in how players were treated. She pointed out double standards that many had whispered about, but few had dared to confront openly. This wasn't an interview. It was a declaration. The reaction was immediate. Media outlets exploded with coverage. Analysts debated. Former players began sharing their own stories that echoed the same themes Aya had raised. The WTA, caught off guard, shifted from confidence to defense. Statements multiplied. Data was presented. Internal reports were cited. But the narrative had already changed. Because now, it wasn't just about claims. It was about belief. And belief was spreading. Weeks into the controversy, something even more damaging surfaced: internal documents. Leaked. Detailed. Difficult to ignore. They suggested inconsistencies in ranking calculations. Patterns in tournament selections. Disparities in how players were promoted. For many, it confirmed what had long been suspected. For Aya, it was validation. For Serena, it was proof. The conversation shifted again from debate to accountability. Young players began speaking out in greater numbers. What once felt like isolated frustration now looked like a systemic issue. A pattern. A structure that needed to be examined, not defended. Meanwhile, Aya kept winning. Match after match. Her performance became her loudest statement. She wasn't just talking about belonging, she was proving it. When she finally reached the final and lifted the trophy, it meant more than victory. It symbolized something larger. A breakthrough. A challenge to the status quo. Months later, changes began to appear. New committees. Promises of transparency. Increased focus on developing young talent. Whether those changes were enough or genuine remained uncertain. But one thing was undeniable. The silence was gone. Serena later reflected on the entire episode with clarity. Institutions don't change because they want to. They change because they're forced to. Because the cost of staying the same becomes too high. And that's what this moment represented. Not just controversy, not just conflict, but a turning point. Alex Eala became more than a player. She became a symbol of accountability, of refusal, of a generation unwilling to wait quietly for its turn. And Serena Williams? She reminded the world that even after stepping away from the court, her voice could still reshape the game. The Miami Open wasn't just another tournament. It became a catalyst, a moment where one rising player spoke up, and a legend made sure the world listened. And the story isn't over. Because this wasn't an ending, it was the beginning of something much bigger.